ToonGrin.
I quit. Fuck! I don't know what to say. I mean, even Disney didn't have faith in This is my first Disney movie. Really? There are tons of Disney films out there. Some that are really good. Why can't I be reviewing any of the good stuff? Fuck you! I should find a new deity to serve! Yes, Lord and Master Cthulhu. So, let's sit back and take a look at the stupidity of Disney's sci-fi epic, John Carter. Okay, so the movie begins on Mars with narration by William Dafoe.
The Red Planet. No air, no life. But you do not know Mars. For its true name is Barsoom. And it is not airless, nor is it dead. But it is dying.
Now, me personally, to improve this, I'd have done some kind of Mako voiceover like in the Conan movies. And yeah, I know Mako's dead and everything, but you can get an impersonator to come on in and do it. I think a Mako impersonation would make this movie about 20% cooler.
A long time ago, on the red world of Mars, or as the true natives call it, Barsoom, dildo-like legs plunged into the ground, carrying a whole city, which is really impractical, given if you could make shit like this, and why would you choose to live on a desert planet and, say, move to a planet with, like, water and stuff? Seriously, Martians are fucking stupid.
See, 20% cooler right there.
Oh, yeah!
So after glory shots of CGI, we see that there's a war between the city of Zodanga and the city of Helium. Yeah, sure, okay, yeah, that's not the least bit uncreative. I understand this. You got words like Barsoom and Zodanga, then Helium? You could have called the fucking kingdom Goober Smooches and it still would have sounded more alien than fucking Helium. Whatever. After a CGI space fight, a blue light flashes, disintegrating everyone aboard the warships except for the leader of the Zodanga fleet, Sob Thon, played by Dominic West, who is then visited by the Therns, who arm him with this blue chicken wire weapon that shoots lasers and shit. Now on Earth, we meet our protagonist, though I use the term very loosely. In New York, 1881, we see John Carter, played by Taylor Kitsch. John realizes he's being followed by this bowler hat wearing gentleman and decides to send a telegram to his nephew, Edgar Rice Burroughs. And this character, his nephew, is in fact the author avatar to the creator of the John Carter book series, writer Edgar Rice Burroughs. So I guess John Carter of Mars is actually one of the first ever published self-insert fanfics.
Oh, that is just wrong.
Yeah, I agree with Flash. That's just wrong. Anyway, Edgar makes it to his uncle's estate, but his uncle John Carter is now dead. Well, that's a bummer, I guess. I mean, he technically gets to inherit everything his rich uncle had, so that sounds like a win to me. One of the many objects of Edgar's inheritance is his uncle's journal, which then has us entering a flashback to 1868. And this is the story portion for the whole movie. John Carter is now all told in the form of a flashback, which of course means there's no drama to it. We saw John on Earth. We know that he made it back to Earth from Mars, which means he clearly survived all the ordeals, so any scenes you could have or something could be threatening his life is now made completely moot because we know he's going to survive it. He made it back to Earth completely safe. So now in the flashback at Fort Grant, Arizona, John is looking to buy supplies so he can go excavating for gold in the Spider Caves. Then the Confederates show up because John was part of the Confederate Army, and they arrest him to take him to see their commanding officer, Colonel Powell, played by Bryan Cranston. And after 3 failed escape attempts that are made to be humorous, but really aren't, he's locked away in prison where he goes to sleep, and then this happens.
Private, man stays in the bullpit till further notice.
Yes, sir.
John. John.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to this right now. This is John's wife and daughter, and they are never given a name and only show up in flashback intervals throughout the course of the movie. You know, this movie just reminds me of another movie I reviewed. Oh, what was it? It was also a Western. Allegedly it was a Western. God, what was it? Jonah fucking Hex. That's what these scenes remind me of. It's Jonah Hex all over again. You got these two characters, wife and child. They show up sporadically throughout the movie, sometimes interlaced with action scenes. And that's it. It's like it's trying to give you depth, but there is no depth. There is no depth. The characters have no names. We do not care. And it just becomes distracting to see them pop up from time to time. So John awakens, knocks out a guard, and then escapes, which means him being in prison was kind of moot, except for showing us the flashback of his wife and child that amount to nothing in this picture. He manages to get a hold of a horse and takes off with Confederate soldiers in pursuit until they run into a tribe of Apaches. Carter tries to talk with the Apaches, but, well, when you get a bunch of hicks together with guns, I think you know what's gonna happen.
Johnny, what the hell is he saying, bud? He's saying...
Yeah, well, rednecks and intolerance. It's a dangerous combination. So the soldiers ditch their colonel and John as the two manage to escape the Apaches, now with Colonel Powell who's been shot. Carter and Powell make it to a rock formation, and then this happens.
The spider.
That looks like a sun. Not a spider. So John decides to duck into the nearby cave and decides to explore it while leaving Powell sitting outside and bleeding out from being shot. Yeah, so John goes looking around the caves and finds an engraving in stone, and this cave also happens to have gold, which is something John wanted to find, so props for John and everything going his way. Well, I mean, until this Thurn just shows up from Mars and just teleports in and starts attacking Carter.
Carter! Carter behind you! Carter!
Now one could argue if you have telekinesis and the element of surprise, why wouldn't you just force throw them across the room from behind, then when your opponent is dazed, teleport in and stab them? You know, it just seems to me that it really hurts your movie when your villains, who are of a highly advanced alien race that are capable of making weapons out of nothing and capable of teleportation, are so inept that they can't even manage to defeat an unkempt Wild West hobo. But for the sake of the movie, John manages to defeat this advanced alien. And since John managed to kick this alien's ass with little or no effort, he decides to rob the corpse, and is then teleported to Mars by touching this medallion. Now in this movie, Mars does have a breathable atmosphere, and I'll accept that. It's part of the fantasy of this movie, is that Mars is a completely viable planet with life. Okay, that's fine, I'll buy that. Now, while hopping around on Mars and getting used to its gravity, John eventually discovers a nest, and in this nest are alien babies, and then John has a run-in with the locals.
You've got me. I surrender.
Jeddak.
I gotta say, I really find the CGI in here to not be that good. It's okay, but I'd argue that Davy Jones in the pirate movies just looked way more impressive. What's a bummer here is that this was Pixar's first time doing a live-action movie, and this movie turned out to be a total commercial flop. Now, to make us even more uncomfortable, just because, we see that these Tharks decide to capture John, and then mercilessly shoot some of the newborn babies.
What the fuck is this?
Nice!
Now we meet Deja Torres, played by Lynn Collins, a princess of Helium, and she's just introduced here to let us know that she is the forced love interest of the main character. As far as story goes, it's pretty generic as you can get. Helium has pretty much lost the war to Zodanga. Literally, Helium is the last standing kingdom against them. So Sobthon made a deal with her dad that in exchange for marriage with Deja, he will spare Helium. And without a second thought, her dad just trades away her virginity for peace. Now back to John, who has been adopted / sort of enslaved by the Tharks. I mean, he's forced against his will to be there, so it's not really adoption, so to speak. Though they don't also really force him to do any labor, so it's not really slavery. It's like this middle ground, I don't know, it's like Slavoption? Is that a word? Yeah, you know what, that's your word of the day for this movie. Slavoption. Let's go with that. Anyways, they treat him like a baby Thark, stripping him, washing him, and feeding him. And seeing how John is a grown man, this is pretty fucking creepy. Anyway, earlier in the movie, we get to see that the Tharks actually speak this really cool made-up alien language. See, now to me this is cool, because it gives you that sense of alienation that John is somewhere else now and he's going to have to learn to overcome this sound barrier. But they get rid of this really quickly. And this is the reason why he's able to speak the alien language.
You will hear it if you choose.
So what, John drinks some magic Jesus juice and all of a sudden he could talk to aliens? I need a break. Oh, I need a fucking break. I'm telling you, these fucking movies give me the shit something fierce. God. So where were we? Right, the next day. So Carter can talk to the aliens now, and we see the Tharks make bets on the Zodangas fighting the Heliums, which is weird since they established earlier that Deja is going to marry Sobthon and that the war would be over. So why are they fighting? I thought a deal was struck. Was that? Uh-huh, okay. I think I got it right now. We need an action scene to distract all of us viewers from the fact that there are no characters in this movie. So we need something loud and colorful, basically the equivalent of jangling keys in front of our eyes. Well, get to it, movie! Jangle them motherfucking keys! And thus a forced romance shall be developed. And by developed, I mean... it won't. This movie sucks. So more mindless action occurs as Don and Deja kill tons of people, which, again, they're supposed to be at peace. But they decide to drag on an action scene as Space Tarzan here decides to go and fight Sob. Which is weird how bad John is doing, considering on this planet, not only can he jump like the fucking Hulk, but he is super strong. And I know this, because this happens earlier in the movie.
You killed him with one blow.
And this is another problem with the fucking movie. John's powers are so loosely defined, and they make no sense, and are never fucking consistent throughout the film. So the Tharks back up John because they're green. Yeah, that's a good enough reason. The Zodangans retreat, and I guess all the other Helium soldiers on these ships are dead? I don't know. I mean, Deja doesn't seem to mind, so I guess why the fuck should the rest of us?
You know once Sabdan has conquered us, he will turn his weapon upon you!
I know that Zodanga has found a way to defeat you. And now you seek a mighty weapon of your own.
Hey there, Nero Angelus. Question. Why can't you understand the Tharks exactly? I mean, is it because they grew up on the same planet? Because I got Russian next-door neighbors and I can't understand a fucking thing they're saying when they start speaking Russian.
The plot demands it.
So John talks with Deja and he learns that he's been teleported to the planet Mars. And this is the best reaction they can get out of this actor.
Mars. I'm on Mars.
Seriously? Dude, you went from Earth to Mars. I live in the year 2013, and I flip my shit when I can't even find my fucking pants. This dude went from one planet to the other, and he seems completely unsurprised by this. For fuck's sake, man, even Ben Stein would have gave a more realistic performance than that shit, and he's as monotone as they get. So to move what is allegedly supposed to be the plot of this movie, John explains that the medallion he stole is from the Therns, and it teleported him to Mars. Deja thinks that this means he is a Thern, and the two, along with Sola, a female Thark, enter the Thark's most sacred temple. They are then caught and are sentenced to death for this blasphemic act. Now, Sola has no characterization other than she's a fucking whoopee. We're supposed to feel sympathy for this character, even though she does really nothing. So they try to tie her in with one of the main characters, and she turns out to be the daughter of Tars Tarkas, the leader of the Tharks. However, being leader means apparently you have no powers whatsoever, so really why even be like the king if you can't do shit? Anyways, the cast is sentenced to death, but Tars Tarkas, played by William Dafoe, helps them escape and gives John the medallion. Then, instead of just going home and, teleporting off the fucking planet, John decides to stay on Mars with the group, and they escape into the desert, completely undetected and with full provisions and mounts to ride.
Everybody got that?
So while traveling through the desert, the group comes across a river that also happens to have some boats. Well, thank God, right? Not even just for the boats, but the fact that there's a river for them to sail it down. And on Mars, of all planets, the desert planet. So they take the boats and start sailing downriver, and just happen to come across this weird structure that looks like a giant-sized weedy cereal block. Now, since John is the protagonist, and he's plot locked so things need to go in his favor, now get this. The medallion that was just handed to him by the Thark leader activates the giant Wheaties block that they happen to stumble across, and it opens up, allowing for John and Deja to enter. Inside, they find a carving on the floor that, with the medallion, lights up, and we get to see a map of the solar system, which activates a diagram. We then get an explanation for John's arrival to Mars.
Here is Barsoom. There is Jarsoom. This glyph here. It's like our symbol for a transcription. A copy. Sent along these lines here. Between the worlds. Like...
The telegram. You're saying I was telegraphed here. I'm a copy of myself.
So this isn't even the real John Carter. This is a copy, which means the real one is back on Earth. That doesn't even begin to make sense, because if his body's back on Earth, does that mean he's just laying in a cave somewhere in the middle of the desert? What's stopping it from dying? What about nourishment and hydration? What about the fact that the desert is home to hundreds, if not possibly even thousands, of different kinds of animals, and some of them being very venomous running about? Why make him a copy? Because, what? Why couldn't you say he just got teleported to Mars? What, you don't think we could have bought that? Look, we saw 8-foot-tall, 4-armed green aliens with tusks coming out of their face. If we could buy that shit, I think we could buy just him being teleported to Mars. And this kills it for me. This really does, because it takes away a sense of drama. Having him be a copy means that there is no immediate danger to him as a person. Oh shit, but the rest of the cast is in immediate danger. The Tharks found them because the Thern told them. How the Thern know where they were exactly is a question that's left unanswered. Anyways, you know what? Doesn't matter. The Tharks are fucking pissed. Okay, so they fucked it up with John already because he's a copy. But the rest of the team is fucking real. So that means they have to work together, right? Are they gonna just band together now as like a cohesive team, like fucking Sci-Fi A-Team, and just kick these aliens' asses together as a cohesive unit?
What are you doing?
So, get her out of here.
Carter!
I was too late once. I won't be again.
What?
What are you doing?
So, get her out of here.
Carter!
I was too late once. I won't be again.
So the copy that technically can't die is going to fight the aliens. Well, there goes your fucking drama movie. Great fucking job. Okay, enjoy the sequence, but don't worry. If the fight gives you no sense of drama, don't worry. They constantly interlace it with cutscenes of his wife and child that have no name. But don't worry, that's not the least bit distracting at all. by the way, letting Deja go with Sala, the Thark who is a total pussy willow? Yeah, great plan. They find Deja, they take her back to fucking Helium to be married to Sabthan, so that failed. They also take John after he blacked out from killing a bunch of Tharks. But don't worry, John escapes any form of potential custody just to be captured by the leader of the Therns, Ma Tai Shang, played by Mark Strong. He talks with John instead of just killing him because... you know. No, it's not because of the plot, Lord and Master Cthulhu. It's because the writers wrote themselves into a motherfucking corner because they are a bunch of hacks. And to prove this even further, here is the motivation for our villain of the picture.
So what is your cause? We have none. We're not haunted by mortality, as you are.
No. Even though I know the courage of the Wizard of Booze would give me strength to go on through this crap, I need to stay sober. Because only my sober mind can truly analyze the crap factor of this fucking movie. So what? Let's fucking do this shit, man! Roll the picture! So John escapes Ma Tai Shang on what looks like a speeder bike. They even have a speeder bike chase scene, much like Star Wars Episode 6. Anyways, John for some reason returns to the Thark village. The same village that wanted to execute him. Hence why he and his friends left. What, did he think they forgot? Because the Tharks don't. And he is captured by the new Thark leader. And then he's sent to prison because they want to fucking kill this guy. And while in prison, John runs into Tars Tarkas, who has been in prison for helping them escape. The two are then sent to the Colosseum. And in the arena, John and Tars must do battle against large monsters. Okay, you know what? This is fucking Star Wars. Disney wanted to make fucking Star Wars. And I know I sound crazy, but shut up. I got proof about this shit. Disney bought the rights to this franchise originally because they wanted to compete with Star Wars. Now you know what I'm calling it? I'm calling it right now. Now that Disney owns Star Wars, they ain't making a sequel. This shit is not no way in hell getting another one. It's just not gonna happen. But if it does, Nero Knights, I swear before the eyes of my tentacle-faced God that I will gladly review that sequel for you in its entirety. So John single-handedly kills the giant monsters and he kills the evil Thark leader, and the Tharks are now motivated to follow him.
The Jeddak of Zodenga means to crush Helium this very night. And if Helium falls, so does Barsoom. We must throw off the yoke of old hatreds. Tharks did not cause this.
That they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
We ride for Zodenga!
So what, are we cool? Are we cool with this? He killed like a shit ton of us, right? I mean, I for one am kind of upset. I mean, my buddy Jim Bob went out there. He's dead now, so we're gonna follow this guy who like killed a shit ton of our. We are, yeah. Okay, I wouldn't personally, but you know everyone else is doing it. John Carter. So John leads the Tharks to wage war against the Zodangans, hoping to assault them and kill thousands during the wedding. Now, while this scene is ultimately pointless, it does give us the one funny joke out of the entire movie.
You! Why is Zodanga undefended? Where is everyone?
They haven't been repositioned outside Helium. Only a small contingent remains.
Zab and Deja Thoris, where are they?
They're at the wedding. In Helium!
You know, I gotta admit, that is still pretty funny. It's immature, sure, but it amuses me. I like watching this man be hurt. Anyways, John gets to the wedding in Helium, and death breaks out. Bodies are everywhere, people are fucking being slaughtered left and right, doesn't matter. John engages Sabthan and beats him. Sabthan is then killed by Ma Tai Shang, who ditches the fight like a little bitch. After the fight, John bangs Deja and decides to toss out the teleporter, and decides he's gonna live a better life on Mars than he did on Earth. Now you think, right, like the movie would end right here, but nope! No, it needs to get even more convoluted.
Sire, must express the deepest of gratitude for saving Helium.
Please, the honor's mine. Fair enough, Earthman. Now it's your move. Octave is just so.
That's right! John gets sci-fi punked back to Earth. And what's really messed up here is that time passed on Earth. Like, a lot. Colonel Powell is a fucking skeleton, yet John's body is somehow perfectly preserved. How? Why? These things are not explained. It's part of the sci-fi. It's like magic, but with aliens. So now that John is desperate to get back to Mars, he takes an inscription from within the cave and spends the next 10 years looking for another medallion using the gold in the cave to fund his expedition. John pretends to find a medallion and then fakes his death. Now remember, Edgar is reading the journal. This was all done in a fucking flashback. So now we are shifting back to the present.
You are the key. This is the task I entrust to you along with all my fortune. Protect my body. The Therns will attempt to destroy it. In the time it has taken you to read these pages, they may have already done so.
And so Edgar rushes to his uncle's gravesite and opens it, and this happens. You know, John sure put a lot of gamble into this. How did he even know the Thern would come to Earth? I mean, Motai Shane could have easily just left John on Earth, stayed on Mars himself, and killed Deja. The dude's a shapeshifter and a teleporter. He's basically the perfect combination for an assassin. He could have just shapeshifted into a Zodanga soldier, teleported in, killed Deja in her sleep, and teleported away. Hell, he could have been even arrested, and even if he had been captured, unless they took the medallion off of him, he could have teleported out of prison. And then those Zodanga forces could have just broke in and laid waste to Helium. See what I mean? See what I mean by none of this crap makes any sense? So yeah, John takes the medallion and goes in his tomb and decides, I'm gonna go back to Mars. And Edgar gets to keep all my shit. John then returns to Mars, to Deja, and despite there being a 10-year gap, she hasn't aged at all. She looks completely the same. See what I mean by this also being a lot like Star Wars? Remember how Padme didn't age? Yeah, that's all I got. Oh, yeah, that was Disney's failed attempt at John Carter. My God, was this movie shit. First off, the name John Carter. Look, if you're aiming for a book to be made into a film, use the title of the book. John Carter, Princess of Mars. This is supposed to be based on the first book. Why wasn't it using the subtitle Princess of Mars? Who is your audience with this? Just calling it John Carter is generic. So from a marketing standpoint, unless you may have heard of the book, you'll more than likely ignore this movie. It's just called John Carter. Does that really pique your interest? The acting here is bland, the characters are stilted, and some are just there. What the fuck was with the two other Therns? They don't even get any names. What's their deal? Why did Sobthon want to take over? Was it because of political power? What was the war between Zodanga and Helium? It lasted for 1,000 years. So, what the fuck was it over? Was it over resources? Control over territory? Species supremacy? What the fuck was it? That is never explained. It's just a war that happens. Maybe it was over a trade dispute. I mean, this is a fucking Star Wars knockoff. They might as well say it was that reason too. And as far as CGI goes, I expect better from Disney, especially when you have Pixar on it. It's fucking Pixar. They produce some of the most beautiful looking films ever made. But look, there is potential in the series, and I can see it. If Disney really wanted to make this movie work, they really should have considered re-releasing these books to the public for modern readers to understand what this franchise was supposed to be. This is an old book. It originated from 1866. This is a book that's 146 years old. Who the fuck was supposed to remember this? I will give you this much. The book alone sounds like a pretty cool concept. It captures that weird Western genre, which is a genre I for one love. It takes a Western hero and has them dealing with strange and supernatural occurrences. But the fact is, the reason this movie failed is because this wasn't thought out. I'm Nero Angelus, and I deliver the verbal execution to any movie I see fit. Yeah, still funny.